You are listening to the Knightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks so much for hitting that play button. Coming up on this week's show, we'll talk about the start of the college hoop season. Our Knightline Sports Network basketball analyst, Ben Stout, will be here to break it all down for you. That's coming up in just a little bit as Ben is standing by in the virtual green room. Meanwhile, let's recap the last weekend in football. Quarterback Dylan Gabriel threw for 336 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also added a rushing score to lead UCF to a wild 58-46 win against South Florida Friday in the annual War on I-4 matchup. Gabriel and Knights came out on top in the shootout that saw the teams combine for 1,223 yards, 66 first downs, and 109 points. Both teams finished with 2 100-yard rushers. And both their starting tight ends had 100-yard performances. Jacob Harris had 5 catches for 110 yards and 3 touchdowns. Bryce Miller had 11 for 121 and 2 TDs for the Bulls. Jordan McLeod threw for a career-high 404 yards and 4 touchdowns, along with a rushing score of his own. On the victory, Knights head coach Josh Heupel.
And guys, we're excited. This is we talked about it earlier in the week. This is a trophy game in state rival. Kind of throw records out the window, and I thought our guys played hard. Didn't always play smart here tonight, but found a way to be on the right side of the scoreboard and just kept competing. And defensively had a bunch of injuries. Before the game, during the game, next man up mentality, and find a way on offense to create enough big plays to be on the right side of it.
Memphis scored a 10-7 win in Navy as Riley Patterson's 26-yard field goal with 10:53 left in the fourth quarter stood up as the game winner. The Tigers, who won in Annapolis for the first time in 3 road games against Navy, came out on top despite being held to 280 yards of offense and 12 first downs in the defensive battle. Memphis limited the midshipmen to 321 in total yards and 14 first downs and kept Navy at bay at 2 of 13 on third down. Tigers head coach Ryan Silverfield.
Man, great job by the defense. Really proud of them. They played a complete game, forced 2 turnovers, and did what it took. And really proud. Obviously, they carried this team, and what a fantastic job they did. Obviously, offense, I know the questions are going to come. We just got to find the consistency, right? Another game, another turnover. We're not being able to sustain drives or put together drives from penalties. But we're going to continue to dig, find a way, and glad we were able to sneak out of here with a win. Obviously, as you guys know, hadn't been able to do that in our history of our program, so another streak broken, and we know we got a great opponent in Tulane next Saturday.
East Carolina scored on its first 7 possessions, including touchdowns on its first 6 drives, to build a 45-7 halftime lead on its way to back-to-back wins to close the season, as they scored a tremendous victory over SMU. The Mustangs scored 31 second-half points and came within 14 points in the fourth quarter, but unable to get any closer. Holton Ahlers completed 20 of 29 passes and twice connected with wide receiver Blake Prohl for touchdowns. Say that 3 times fast. Prohl had 6 catches for 152. Snead had 7 for 92 and a TD. And Snead hit on a reverse pass to Prohl for a 35-yard score in the first quarter, while adding 39 yards on a pair of punt returns to finish with 131 all-purpose yards. Pirates head coach Mike Houston.
Just an incredibly impressive performance by our players. I've been waiting on this game. I didn't know when it was going to happen. I thought it was happening at Tulsa. You've almost maybe had it against Navy, but you've been waiting on that game where you finally it felt like everything just flipped. And, it's the daily commitment that our players have to doing all the things that they do. And it's, their attitude, their work ethic, the kind of teammates they are. It's just, they're doing things right consistently, within the program and outside the program. And, you're starting to see those tangible results on the field and just excited for them. That's a good football team we played. They're going to go to a bowl game. They've got, a ton, good resume this year, quality wins. But certainly, today was a great day to be a Pirate.
Tulsa at Houston and Cincinnati and Temple were COVID postponements, and the Cincinnati and Temple game will not be made up. Neither will Tulsa and Houston. Cincinnati has clinched a spot in the AAC championship game for the second straight year. And if all remaining games are played as scheduled, Tulsa would earn its place into that December 19th matchup with at least one win in its final two games against Navy and Cincinnati. Memphis would reach the championship game with 2 wins coupled with 2 Tulsa losses, while Houston would get the nod by winning out, having Tulsa lose out, and being ranked ahead of Tulsa in the college football playoff aggregate computer rankings. And speaking of the college football rankings, Cincinnati holds firm at number 7. Tulsa picked up a spot to number 24. The schedule coming up for this weekend looks like this. Houston at SMU, it looks like this game will end up being a COVID cancellation. That, according to Bruce Feldman, that reported, of course, on Yahoo Sports. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And actually, Billy Embody, our friend out there in Dallas, was the first to report the COVID-19 issues at SMU on that. So that would be the 8th game this season the Cougars have had either canceled or postponed this season. So that's where it gets tricky and affects SMU in a big way there. Memphis at Tulane, that'll be noon on ESPN+. Memphis leads the all-time series 23-12 with 1 tie. And the Tigers won last year's game 47-17. Tulsa at Navy, that will be 3:30 Saturday on ESPN2. So a big game for Tulsa. They could clinch a spot in the AAC championship game with a victory. Navy leads the all-time series 6-1, and they romped over the Golden Hurricane last year 45-17. Our players of the week in football: Holton Ahlers was the offensive player of the week, the East Carolina quarterback, in their 52-38 win against SMU. Had 20 of 29 for 298 yards, 4 first-half TD passes, in building that big 45-7 halftime lead. Ahlers, one of 5 NCAA FBS players with at least 7,000 career passing yards and 1,000 career rushing yards. The defensive player of the week, Quindell Johnson, the safety from Memphis. Game-high 12 tackles, including 9 solo stops and a key interception on the Memphis 17-yard line as the Tigers won that 3-point victory over Navy. Johnson led the Memphis defense. It held Navy to 321 yards of total offense. And again, allowing Memphis to win a game with 10 points for the first time since 1995. And Riley Patterson, the Memphis kicker, was the special teams player of the week. Although he scored only 4 points, his 26-yard field goal proved to be the game winner. It was Patterson's 11th field goal of the season, 11-12 inside of 50 yards on the year. And one final football note: Tulane offensive coordinator Will Hall has been hired to be the new head coach at Southern Miss. Coming up next, we'll switch to the hardwood and talk about AAC hoops with our Knightline Sports Network analyst Ben Stout when the AAC Report continues in just a moment.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
All right, basketball is underway in college hoops. And joining us now to take a look at the American Athletic Conference is our Knightline Sports Network basketball analyst, Ben Stout. And Ben, as we bring you into the theme of CBS's college basketball music, is there not a sweeter sound around?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jeff, I'm so glad that, it might be over a month late, but I'm so glad that basketball is starting back up again, and it's been great to catch a few college games that that have already started. But I'm definitely looking forward to this season and hoping we can finish it. It was really tough last March not having March Madness. It felt like a piece of all of us was missing. So certainly glad that it's back, and it's going to be great to watch.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm as big a March Madness guy as there is out there. So it was definitely to have the whole sports world stop is one thing, but one of my great passions just disappeared due to the start of the pandemic. But but at least we're back, and of course, we're underway, and like football, there's struggles to get all the games scheduled, and there's going to be rescheduling and restarts and all that good stuff. But by and large, if the majority of the games get played, that's what ultimately matters. I guess, what is your thoughts on the kind of patience that's needed to get through this season?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to take a lot of discipline. We're going to be asking a lot of these young, 18 to 22, 23-year-old players to stay disciplined for an entire season and make sure that they're, not going out as much as they would in a normal setting. Just trying to kind of stay within their own bubble or stay within themselves and just be disciplined, not only on the court but off the court as well. And so it's going to be an interesting season, that's for sure. As you said, we're probably going to have some rescheduling here and there, but hopefully it doesn't disrupt the NCAA season for the American or for any other conference. In a major fashion that would really alter what we're trying to accomplish this season, which is a good clean basketball season where we can understand who are the best teams and who aren't. So hoping we're able to move through it somewhat smoothly in this type of setting.
Yeah, and of course the bigger challenge that there's more travel than football presents, so that is probably the biggest obstacle that they kind of have to face.
Exactly. Not only more travel, but more, just more games in general, right? So you're hosting more teams into your facilities, and you're traveling up, as you said, traveling to other cities throughout the country. So it's quite interesting. And then even some of the extended conference schedules, are also quite a unique thing about this season, where you're playing more teams in your conference, and so it's going to be quite wild.
Well, let's talk about the conference in general. Let's start off, of course, talking about right now what the gold standard of the conference right now is the Houston Cougars. Kelvin Sampson arrived in 2014, and many thought that was going to be a short stay as he would make his way back to a Power 5 type job, but he's still there, and he has built the Cougars into quite a program.
Yeah, I just mentioned discipline not too long ago, and they certainly are that team that is just, they seem to be locked in on every play. They play fantastic defense, but they're skilled at every position. They kind of play this, I don't want to necessarily call it small ball because all of them are pretty lengthy and athletic, but each player is rather versatile and really rangy and can get up and down the court quick. I mean, led by, of course, last year's freshman Caleb Mills, who's kind of for the most part, the consensus pick to be Conference Player of the Year. And then, of course, you got Quentin Grimes as well. They just got a whole roster of players that not only play well individually, but Calvin Sampson is a heck of a coach, and he gets them playing together so well. And they are definitely the gold standard in our conference. We've been able to we were able to beat them a couple years ago at Houston. We being UCF, and certainly we're going to face the Knights are going to face a very big test with their conference opener at Houston in a week or two, and so. Certainly they're going to be a tough team, and tough team for any team to beat throughout the conference.
Yeah, and he seems to have, a good, it's almost like a revolving door as guys, graduate, the next, the sophomores and juniors step up. And, you got guys like Giroux and Sasser. And then, they got a new freshman in Tremont Mark who looks like he's going to be a pretty good one, too. So he just kind of keeps the wheel spinning there.
Yeah, he not only seems to recruit just excellent basketball players, but players that really fit his system and style that he wants to play. They're a tough team. A lot of people are calling them a lock to be a Sweet 16 team this year, and it's tough to argue against that. I certainly think they're the one team in our conference that is a no doubt NCAA tournament team, and probably going to be going pretty deep in the tournament as well. They're just built that way.
Yeah, and of course, in a number 10 ranking at this point in time, so they definitely are definitely on the rise once again. One of the top teams that has been in the conference, Cincinnati, they had their first year under John Brandon last year, but they're going to lose some firepower coming into this season.
Yeah, definitely. They certainly lost to some of their top players in Jerron Cumberland, who he seemed to be one of those guys that was there forever at Cincinnati. Yeah. So I, as a UCF fan, I'm certainly glad that we don't have to face him anymore. But they definitely have some great players in guys like Keith Williams and Chris Vogt. I don't know exactly how to say his name. Is it Vaught or is it Vogt? But he's the big 7-footer. He gave UCF trouble last year, and he's a guy that likes to mix it up, and he provides that presence down low, and they've got some great players there. So I think that certainly they're going to be a tough team to play, and they're well coached as well.
Yeah, and John Brandon certainly was a good fit following in the footsteps of Mick Cronin. And one of the top teams out in the West, SMU, Tim Floyd is, he took over for the legend Larry Brown, and he seems to do a lot with a mixed bag and sometimes a very little to work with.
Yeah, he does, and they've got a couple of good returning players too. I think SMU is interesting because they're a team that certainly likes to get up and down the court quick. They're a high-scoring team. They've got a pretty high-powered offense, and you kind of wonder if they can get it together on defense. But certainly, I think along with Houston, they probably have one of the best backcourts in the league with Tyson Jolly and Kendrick Davis and a few others. They're certainly a force in the backcourt, and they're a high-scoring team that likes to get up and down the court. So they're going to be tough. They're going to be tough to play for sure. I think that the three teams you mentioned are all so far are all going to be vying for some NCAA tournament spots when it's all said and done, and they're going to be a tough matchup for any team in the American Conference.
Yeah, I don't know why I had Tim Floyd on the brain. Tim Jankovic is obviously the coach.
Jankovic, yeah.
It's like, okay, I got my Tims all mixed up there, but nonetheless, we got the right guy now on the floor for that. So the interesting story going into this season now is Wichita State, because Greg Marshall in his 13 seasons there turned Wichita State into quite an elite program. Of course, in the allegations came up of physical, verbal abuse, and I'm wondering, one of these cases, they have had a lot of transfers in the last 2 years, and I'm wondering if that was the smoke that was leading to the fire.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time that you and I talked on your show, on this show, we were talking about it. The news just broke where Wichita State had we were kind of doing a season review, and Wichita State, just had this mass exodus of players that just said, forget it, and they turned into transfer state overnight. They were they had a lot of players leave, and then you hear all of these things come out about Greg Marshall. I mean, Greg Marshall has taken that program in Wichita, Kansas, and really just and put them on the map, right? I mean, they're one of those programs that, when we have the opportunity for them to join the American, I think other American team fans are a little bit frustrated sometimes that Wichita State's a part of our conference because they don't supply much of the other sports, obviously. But certainly they're a power in basketball, and they boost our conference standing when it comes to basketball. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of weather this storm, kind of getting through the distraction of the players that are there.
Assistant coach Isaac Brown will be the interim head coach for this season, so they'll at least have some continuity. The interesting part about this, I will say, is I'm going to throw a sleeper name out there for the future head coach of that program. And I don't know that he's looking for a job, but Kirk Spiro is not too far away in Iowa. And he's a Midwestern guy. Wouldn't that be an interesting twist?
Yeah. You mentioned my old coach at UCF, Kirk Spira, and he's kind of a fan favorite amongst UCF fans of my generation, that's for sure. And he's been the associate head coach at Iowa for a long time, and obviously they're a top 10 team this year, and he's really helped build a spectacular program there at Iowa, and is playing at that's at his alma mater. I don't know if Coach Spira I haven't talked to him in a while, but I don't know if he does still want to be a head coach. I believe he's pretty comfortable where he's at. That would be rather interesting, though, if he were to come back into our conference, which means, of course, he would come back and be playing against UCF again, which certainly would bring back a lot of nostalgia for me and for any fan of that era of basketball with Coach Spira. I will say one more thing about Coach is throughout my basketball life, there's certainly never been a better X's and O's coach than Coach Spira. So there's a reason why he's been at Iowa since he left UCF, and I'm sure he'll be there as long as he'd like to be or gets another opportunity.
Yeah, of course, I'm just throwing out a hot rumor just to see what sticks. But of course, yeah, I'm a big Kirk Spiro fan myself as well from covering him back in my radio days. He certainly was one of the class acts. If
it does happen, though, you heard it here first on the AAC Report.
there you go. So let's shift gears now and talk about Tulane. Ron Hunter came in to that program, and he's definitely a coach. They started off with a bang last year, and then, I think their lack of depth probably caught up with them. But he's certainly a strong recruiter and a guy that certainly brings a lot of passion to the sport.
Yeah, he was able to grab a few transfers that are pretty much eligible to play this year, and so he's trying to build that program back from a program that really had some struggles over the past couple of seasons, and try to build them back up. I think it probably will be 1, maybe 2 more years until he gets there. The American is a tough basketball conference, and I don't think that they're quite there yet. But certainly he seems to be pointing that program in the right direction, and they might surprise a few teams this year. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely. And going, kind of looking at a little bit of an interesting team in Tulsa. Frank Haith certainly has been there for quite a while. He's had some ups and downs there. Last year, they looked to be on an upward trend. They beat Houston in a blowout game last year. And who could forget the win over Wichita State when Elijah Joyner hit the big 3-pointer with his dad watching him play in the stands for the first time. Brandon Rochelle is a tremendous player. This team could be a sleeper, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned Brandon Rochelle. He is quite a good player, and they got some good shooters as well on that team in addition to Rochelle. So I agree with you. They're a team that seems to be able to stay down and and really play some great defense, and they're a team that is rather disciplined and on the uptick in the American. I think they're a team that any team in the American is certainly looking at and making sure that they're on their game when they have to face Tulsa. So you're right. They're one of those teams that traditionally may not have been a power by any means in the conference, but certainly over the last couple of seasons they've been able to surprise a few teams, and I think this season will be no exception.
Yes, yeah, they're definitely a bump on the road in the schedule if you're not careful. That's for sure. East Carolina under Joe Dooley 2.0, he's trying to get that team back. They do have a tremendous player and maybe a potential conference player of the year in Jaden Gardner.
Exactly. I think that he's another, with some of the players that are on Houston, it's kind of hard to ignore the kind of force that is Jaden Gardner. I mean, ever since he was a freshman, he's been quite a contributor, a double-double machine, basically, for East Carolina. He hasn't had much help in the past, and that kind of has led to East Carolina not necessarily being that much of a team that you're afraid of in the American. But he's a couple years older now. I think is he going into his junior season, or is he going to be a senior? I feel like he's been there for a while.
he has it does seem like he has been there for a while. That's for sure. I mean, he's only 20 years old, so I think he is. I believe he is a junior.
Yeah, I think he is a junior as well. Yeah, you're right. So I think this is his third season at ECU. But it does seem like he's been there for a long time, just because he's been contributing at a high level since he was a freshman. He's a big body guy, loves to mix it up, but he's got a lot of good versatility in his game. At 6'7", he kind of plays bigger than he is. He kind of plays like a big man, but he also can step outside as well. He's got a good handle to him. But like I said about him being a rebounding machine, he just loves to crash the boards and get pushbacks. He's an effort or putbacks. He's an effort player, and so Jaden Gardner is going to give that team a chance against any team in the American. But that being said, he hasn't had much help in the past, and I don't really think that there's that much difference this year. And so as long as you can somewhat contain him with some double teams, throw a few guys at him, and try to contain Jaden Gardner a little bit, you should be able to beat East Carolina this year. And so I don't know if teams in the American are necessarily too afraid of East Carolina as long as they can contain the beast that is Jaden Gardner, that's for sure.
And we'll talk about our neighbors to the west over at the University of South Florida under Brian Gregory, who is, I think, is a terrific coach, and he is going to make a difference with that program. I think he already is, as a matter of fact. And of course, they lost Alexis Yedna early last year. He is back and working his way back in this year, which certainly is a lot more help than they could have asked for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As much as it pains me to say it, as being a UCF guy, I do think that our neighbors to the west certainly are going to be a formidable team this year. You're right about Brian Gregory. I'm not a big fan of anything in South Florida. I'm not a fan of him either. He's kind of crazy on the sideline, but by the same token, he gets his guys to play hard. And you're right. Getting Alexis Yetna back, I mean, that's a big body guy. As a freshman, he really came on the scene strong, and he was the freshman of the year in the conference 2 years ago, and he even surprised us back with that great team that we had. I mean, he really played strong against us that year as well, and he was out last season, obviously, with that injury, and so getting him back is a huge windfall for South Florida, and they've got some good guards as well, in Caleb Murphy and some others. So they're going to be a team to watch out for, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then the University of Memphis, the Tigers, Penny Hardaway has now made this a one of those programs that this is your ticket to the NBA kind of thing. Certainly, Precious Achua came in and had a terrific freshman season. And they've got Lester Quinones back. And what are your thoughts on what the Tigers will do this year?
Yeah, so I think being having lived in Memphis for a number of years, came back to Orlando about 2.5-3 years ago now. It's obviously the Tigers fans just love their basketball, and having Penny Hardaway as their coach has been their goal well before he actually was able to take over as the head coach of Memphis. And I think that Penny, obviously, just great guy, amazing basketball player, not only for the University of Memphis, but in the NBA as well. I think he has got so much cachet in that area that he's just getting amazing recruits, and he's obviously pulling in those one-and-done guys. Musa Cisse seems to be somebody who could certainly be that one-and-done, the next Precious Achua guy, and then he's got some key transfers this year as well that are going to certainly contribute. But I think so far, a lot of Memphis fans are more than likely, if they were going to be completely honest, they're looking for Penny to really take that next step from being this great recruiter and one that his players love to play for into being a really good X's and O's and game coach. There are certain times where the really good teams like the Houstons of the world and Cincinnati when they were really clicking on all cylinders could take advantage of Memphis being a rather young team or being a little bit of an undisciplined team, kind of relying on their athleticism. So when they face really good team units so far over the past couple of seasons, they've struggled. So they're going to be a tough team to play, one that most teams in the American are certainly going to get up for and try to play their best game. And if you can stay disciplined and play as a team, you might have a chance to take them down. But you certainly don't want to let that athleticism and the great players that they have on their team kind of catch fire or really feel like they can get going, because they can run away from you quick.
And up in the city of brotherly love of Philadelphia, Aaron McKee in his second season, he had big shoes to fill with Fran Dunphy's retirement, and Temple certainly had their struggles a year ago. And what is it like for a guy to you look, they had Chaney, they had Dunphy, and Aaron McKee has been the coach in waiting, so it's not like he came out of nowhere, and he certainly was a great player for Temple back in the day. What do you see for Temple?
Yeah, I think they're probably a year, maybe one more season away, maybe two more seasons away from quite bouncing back from and getting to that level where they were a pretty scary team a few years ago. I think Aaron McKee might be pointing them in the right direction, and you're right. I mean, he paid his dues. He was an assistant on that program for a while. And he stepped in last year, had a pretty respectful season, almost got a winning record, but certainly probably not to his standards in his first year. But then they lost a lot of players, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I think they lost a decent amount of their scoring that they had from last season, and so they're going to be a lot of newcomers, a lot of new faces that they're going to be looking to contribute this season. And so I think they're probably 1 or 2 seasons away from being a scary team to other programs in the American. But again, when you've got a good coach like Aaron and they've got some good recruits lately, who knows? They could surprise a few teams this season.
All right, and of course, since we're on the Knightline Sports Network, we did save the best for last. The UCF Knights opened their season with a nice victory over Auburn on Monday night. Too bad they lost their Saturday game against Oklahoma, but certainly this UCF team looks like Johnny Dawkins has brought in a lot of talent. He's basically assembled his guys now. So give me your take on Johnny Dawkins and UCF.
Yeah, it was too bad that we weren't able to play that game on Saturday against Oklahoma. I would have loved to try to avenge that 1-point loss. I think it was like the day before, the day after Christmas last year. I can't remember exactly when it was. And I certainly would have loved to kind of avenge that 1-point loss. But that being said, I was really encouraged from what I saw against Auburn the other night on Monday night. I was really encouraged with not only the kind of the effort that this team put forth. We didn't have Darius Perry. Hopefully he'll be back soon. That's our transfer point guard from Louisville. I think he's going to be a starter right away as soon as he's healthy. We didn't have Tony Johnson for the second half, so we lost our two our two true point guards for that game. Didn't quite have them. But he got a combo guard like Dre Fuller stepping into the starting lineup as a point guard, playing 37 minutes. He filled up the stat sheet. He kind of did everything that you needed him to do at running that offense and remaining disciplined. And so I was just really proud of the way that he stepped in and, 13 points, 7 boards, 5 assists, three steals. He was just kind of all over the place. But this team overall, and what I was really encouraged in seeing on Monday night, I don't want to overreact to the first game of the year, but it does seem like with the length that this team has from kind of all positions and the versatility where they have each player on the team can kind of play multiple positions. You got a guy like Sean Mobley that can play the 3, 4, 5. You got C.J. Walker, who's just a freak athletically, but he can play the 3, 4, 5, maybe even guard the 2 if we needed him to. You got Dre Fuller stepping in, who's a natural 2 or a 3 that stepping in playing the point guard position. Brandon Mahan the same way. This team is I think that's kind of finally in his 5th year at UCF. It's kind of built in the image that Johnny Dawkins really wants to play as far as his style of play, basketball-wise here at UCF. I think he's finally got the athletes and a team that can press you in the full court. That is certainly going to be the hallmark of this team is certainly going to be defense. That's always going to be the way Johnny Dawkins' team is. It's a defense-first team. I think if we can gel and really find a way to get guys like Darren Green open shots, move the offense really well with that pick and roll high post that Dawkins likes to run on offense. If we can kind of gel offensively as a team, I think UCF has a chance to really make some noise in the American this year, where a lot of commentators or whatever, or maybe those outside the program may not give us a chance in certain games. We could go ahead and surprise some people. So I was, again, don't want to overreact by just seeing one game, but I was happy with what I saw the other night. Mainly happy with the effort and how well they played defensively, but also with how much they can improve upon that performance where they led Auburn basically the entire game. Sustained their runs multiple times in the second half, always stayed poised, and you got guys like Brandon Mahan in the second half stepping up and getting 12 points all in the second half and made some big shots. So I'm encouraged. Scoring can come from a lot of different areas on this team, but certainly they're going to be anchored by that defensive front, which it seems like this year for the first time we could consistently play full court press if we want to. And I think we'll see a lot more of that this year.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting too because when you look how Johnny Dawkins has had to meld his teams. 2 years ago he has Taco Fall, which is a whole different, which is a whole different style of defense in and of itself. But now to have the ability to do more trapping and things like that, and they held Auburn to 32% from the floor, and those are the kind of numbers Johnny Dawkins loves to see.
Yeah, absolutely, and they haven't. I mean, Auburn lost a lot of scoring, right? They had a number of players get drafted this year, so they're not the top 15, consistent team they were last year by any means. So I don't want to overreact to that. But by the same token, Auburn is a team that loves to press. They love to try to make you make mistakes, and they love to shoot threes as well. And so they're trying to get up and down the court. They're trying to play fast, not only on their own side offensively. They're trying to play fast and get up in transition, but they're trying to speed you up and make you play fast as well. And I thought overall, while we didn't shoot very well as a team either, I think we shot about 37% for the game. So certainly we want to improve upon that. But I think we didn't get frustrated with that. We kind of remained within ourselves, and we made them play our game. We kind of beat them at their own game. We pressed them, we pressured them, and we caused them to make a lot of mistakes. And I think it worked out in our favor. It was great to see that type of effort from UCF, and also both Johnny Dawkins and C.J. Walker. I'll give them credit among kind of being happy with their team's performance, offensive or defensively, I should say. they both acknowledged right after the game that, the area of focus that has actually plagued UCF for a little while now is giving up too many offensive rebounds, and we certainly gave up too many offensive rebounds in that game. So I think that's an area that we certainly can improve in the future.
All right, he is at Big Social 32 on Twitter, and also part of the Knightline at Night, which is heard Tuesday nights at 9 on WDBO, AM 580, and of course you'll be on the Knightline podcast on a regular basis throughout the basketball season, and hopefully we'll drop you in from time to time here on the AAC Report.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. Anytime. It's always great speaking with you about the AAC, and obviously I'm a big homer for UCF, and hopefully they can do well in the American. But overall, I think this is going to be an exciting year for our conference, and hopefully one that we can make a noise at on a national scale.
All right, that sounds good. Ben, once again, thanks a bunch. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
And we will be right back to announce the Players of the Week in men's and women's basketball and close out this week's show right after this.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Fagley reminding you to tune in every Tuesday night, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app for Knightline at Night. Brought to you by Chad Bar Law. We'll be taking your calls and your texts reacting to the previous week's UCF sports action, and you never know who will show up. Once again, that's Knightline at Night, every Tuesday, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app. Go Knights and charge on.
Welcome. This is a promo for the Take a Left at Albuquerque podcast, new to the Knightline Sports Network. You should listen to it. I say things like this. We need to stop blaming Jerry because we would do the exact same thing if we owned the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Do you know how much fun it is to own the Dallas Cowboys? My guests will say things sometimes like this.
It's the Lord of the Flies thing that happens when they don't understand that things are wrong, spoiler alert, until Piggy dies.
Lord of the Flies has been out for like 100 years. I don't even know.
Yeah. Sorry to everyone at home who I spoiled the book for. A book's been out for like 90 years or something.
And sometimes, rarely though, I'll say really stupid things like this. If they don't make it out of the West and the Raptors get to the finals, I will go on either this show or whoever's show and say that Kawhi Leonard is overrated because I have too much evidence of it. New episodes drop every Friday with me and some of my good friends right here on the Knightline Sports Network.
Our players of the week look like this in men's basketball. Marcus Sasser, the Houston guard, helping the Cougars off to a 3-0 start by averaging 17.3 points, shooting 50% from three-point range, and he broke the Fertitta Center record with 7 three-pointers in the season opening home win over Lamar last Wednesday, and a game-high 17 points in their win over then-ranked number 14 Texas Tech on Sunday. The freshman of the week is his teammate Tremont Mark. He started off his career with a strong 22.8 rebound game against Lamar, 11 points off the bench in the Cougar win over Texas Tech, and in 3 games last week, 14 points and 4 rebounds were his averages. Houston, by the way, ranked number 10 in this week's AP Top 25. And again, we mentioned they won a hard-fought win over number 14 Texas Tech last Sunday at the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth. On the women's side of the hoops, player of the week, Emerald Thomas of Cincinnati. The senior shined in their lone appearance, scoring a conference-high 34 points as the Bearcats took a 73-67 win in overtime over Northern Kentucky, and finishing just 1 point off matching her career high. The preseason American Women's Basketball Co-Player of the Year scored 28 points in the game's final 25 minutes and outpaced Northern Kentucky by a 13-11 clip on her own during the overtime period. And the freshman of the week is Drakayla Jordan, freshman guard from Tulane. Her successful debut in an 88-43 win over Nicholls State had 17 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists for the Green Wave. 6 of 11 from the field, 4 of 5 from the free throw line, and a pair of steals in 25 minutes of action. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. As always, please follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88. And you can follow the Knightline Sports Network as well at UCF_Knightline. And as always, please like and share all of our network sports programming. This has been the AAC Report only on the Knightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.